Hey guys, Ken's 97 Stowe 171. Well, back to the Alien Gear Low Pro belly band, and as you can see, still doesn't work. Decided to make another video about it because the way I attempted to fix it, I thought was going to be pretty cool and might work, and it didn't really cost me anything. So what I did was, well, I have a 3D printer. It's an old ANET A8, bought it several years ago. It's pretty cheap, and I have some ABS plastic currently. So I started watching. My idea was to try to get the Ruger in the same holster. The shell, of course, the one that Alien Gear sells is a Kydex shell here. There's not one on the back side of the pistol. It just goes against the fabric material here. And I thought, well, that'll be easy. I'll just make one half of the clamshell. So I started looking at ordering some Kydex, and then I had the bright idea that, wait a minute, I've got ABS plastic. It's heat resistant and sweat resistant, and I was pretty sure I could get it to melt using a heat gun. And so I took some junk, pieces of ABS that I had from failed prints or whatever, heated up with a heat gun, and sure enough, it was soft enough to easily bend. So then I thought, okay. So I rigged up some cardboard on the floor, put a piece of paper towel over the pistol so that just in case, put on a pair of gloves. So what I did was I kind of took the shape of the original Alien Gear holster. It's sort of that shape. It's sort of a triangle-y shape, so that to make sure it would mount up with the bolt holes that are in that are under here that I can't change. You can see the screw holes right here and right here, right here. There's 4 of them, and they give you some compression kind of washers that you can cinch down the tension on whatever firearm you have. And they give you a bunch of them. They give you some taller ones and some shorter ones and some different threads. So, okay, so I used Tinkercad, which is an online 3D 3D editor. Oh my God, I can't talk today. 3D designer. And basically I made it 2.5 millimeters thick, and then what I did was it's kind of funny, I had the design up on the screen on my computer monitor, and I just held up the one that came from Alien Gear kind of in front of it, and I just kind of made the shape the same basic shape. And this was actually a failed one that I did first, and I'll tell you about that. So I made it, printed it, and unfortunately what I didn't take I did take this into account, but I didn't take enough, is that the overhang here needed to come down. This fits over the firearm nicely, but I needed to leave about 15 more millimeters on each side so that there'd be enough room for the bolt holes. And I thought I accounted for it, but I didn't. So the thickness of the firearm ate up the distance that I had accounted for. So it just didn't work. But here's a little closer look at that one. Here, let me come around the other side of the camera so I can see if you're seeing it. So basically, rather than buying some Kydex, which, I would have had to wait for it to come, I thought, well, let me just print a sheet of ABS that's 2.5 mils thick. That's the thickness. 2.5 millimeters is about how thick the Kydex was from the holster manufacturer, right? Alien Gear. So that's what I did. That one was a fail, too small. So I expanded it a little bit and made this one. And it works. It's not perfect. I probably needed to heat it up and crush it a little bit more this way, because the gun does move a little bit that way. I should have probably squished it a little bit that way more. But it does retain it. and it locks in. You know, if you shake it really hard, it'll come out of the holster. But it's not going to, from this position, it's not going to come out. And I could go in and like super glue a little bit of more ABS inside here to take up that space. So that's a possibility. I also could reheat it and just squish it a little bit more. But I already have the holes drilled, so anyway. But regardless, I don't think I'm going to bother because, as you can see, it didn't freaking work either. And I should have known better, but I thought it was worth trying. You know, in the other video on this holster, I stuck this gun in the other holster, and there goes my AC. Stuck the gun in the other holster, and you can still sort of see it. But I thought if I made a custom holster for it, and it would be crunched down tighter this way, maybe it would hide it. But obviously, it still doesn't work. Not really. You know, I tried it. That's about as far as I want to reach. So it just, you know, it still shows, unfortunately. You know, if I move it more over here, where the other one hid the best, you know, it still shows. It's better. It just doesn't work. You know, unfortunately. And I've got this as tight. I've got it all the way to the ends. So it's as tight as it could possibly be. So, kind of a fail. I mean, that might work, you know. But again, it's like right here, it's not really that much better than the naked holster from Essential Holsters or my inside the waistband. So, it doesn't work. And after thinking about it some more, I had mentioned in the previous video that I thought, well, because I'm bigger, that it would be easier to hide. But actually, that's the opposite of the case. That's opposite of the reality. Because when you've got a curve, and then you put a flat thing on that curve, the ends of that thing are going to stick out more. If my body was completely flat, and say I weighed 100 pounds or something, this probably would conceal better if I wanted to wear it somewhere here. But because you've got a curvature, you're trying to put a flat object on a curved object, and so it sticks out on the endpoints. So, yeah, kind of sucks. I mean, it was kind of a fun project, and it didn't cost me anything other than a little bit of time on my day off. No big deal. And it's kind of nice to know that I could make one of these using that process. So if I come up with another holster or another thing that I might want to make or build, at least I know I could use the 3D printer to make an ABS mold. It wasn't that difficult. It took maybe 2 hours to print this. It was a little bigger than this. I trimmed it down. It was bigger than this, and I trimmed it down on a sander right down here. It was more square. Basically, this time I didn't screw up, and I made it bigger than it needed to be, figuring I can always cut some off if I needed to. You print it too small, you're screwed. So, lesson learned on the first fail here. But, I mean, it's very rigid. It's just as rigid as Kydex, and I don't imagine that it would be any more vulnerable to heat or moisture or anything else. It's ABS plastic. I mean, that's what they make. Everything that sits in a car is made out of ABS plastic. So, I think that'll work just as good as Kydex. It does have a little texture, and if you really tried to snap it, it's probably not as strong as Kydex because it is layers of individual strands. So if you went to really forcefully break this, it probably would break before the Kydex would, or tear, but not likely to have happen. And you could, actually ABS, you can put it in a acetone bath. So you don't dip it in the acetone, you use the acetone vapor. So you put the object, you hang the object, or set it on something, like on a plate above, and then you put the acetone around it, you put a cover over it, and the vapor from the acetone will smooth this surface and kind of melt it slightly chemically, and then you let it fully dry, and then you'll have a much smoother surface, and it also melts all the plastic sort of together. You might be able to do that with the heat gun too, kind of melt the pieces together. Um, so anyway, guys, I think that's all I wanted to cover. I'm definitely, again, kind of bummed. Um, but one good thing is that I can now move from this gun to my Taurus using this same holster. So if I did decide to keep it, and I'm kind of leaning that way, it's about $15 to ship it back. And I think the actual price on this was like $90. So then take 15 out of that, you know, you're looking at $75. You're gonna get like 70. It's basically I'd get $75 back. They'd give me the 90, but I'd pay 15 to get it to them. So I'm kind of thinking I might, for $75, is it worth the hassle of mailing it back and all that shit? And again, it might have a use if I wanted to wear it externally. I don't know, if I went hunting with some neighbors or needed it out in the bush or walking around or whatever. It does have a use that's different than any other holster I have. So that might be a reason to keep it. For $75, I don't know. Maybe I'll figure out a solution. I don't know what it would be though. That just kind of sucks that doesn't work. And see, the thing is, even if you pinched it more here, but there's a gap right there because it's on a round surface. If I pinched it down here, the butt sticks out more. So again, that's where I wanted it, but it just doesn't work. Anyway, guys, that was an update. Give me a second here and I'll show you my 3D printer. This is more of a hobby video than a gun video. Give me a second here. Sorry, the camera's gonna just jiggle around. Okay, hold on a second. So that's the 3D printer. It's an ANET A8. These are structural reinforcements that I printed when I first got it. The orange or the red, this was the original surface for the printer. Was this aluminum, and it's actually not very flat. And you really need a flat surface when you're 3D printing. So what I did was I took some high temp RTV, and then I bought a piece of plate glass, which is flat, and just stuck it down there, and then re-leveled the bed. So the other part that I printed was this structure right here, along with this belt tensioner. So she's old. I've had it for a long time. It's not the greatest printer in the world, but actually it does a pretty good job on accuracy. And I paid like $180 for it or something like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. And it still works fine. Give me a second and I'll show you some of the things that I've printed in the past. Sorry guys, just didn't want to show you around my living room quite now, and that was the easiest way to block that. Yeah, I know, cheesy. So I printed that. It's a heart-shaped spiral vase, kind of cool. That's made out of PLA, not ABS. That is basically made out of corn, some kind of organic material. Melts pretty easily, not usable for anything structural. That might see heat. It's also more brittle. Here's another one like that. That one's kind of cool. It's very, not very structural. It's like one layer thick this way. But it's got it was a cool color. This was a mechanical structural thing that I put together. It's a planetary. That's a printed in place. It was printed just like that. Took a little bit of effort to get the gears all loose. Pretty cool. And then the most intricate thing that I've ever printed is that. They call it the Dark Angel. That took about a day. She even has her little fingers out there. Kind of cool. All right, guys. Well, again, sorry for the shaky cam and the Alright guys, should have just ended it there, but I think that's about all. If you have any ideas, let me know. Most of the comments previous were just return it. And I was planning on doing that, but then I thought, well, maybe I can fix it. Oh well. Maybe I'll think of something or think of a better use for it. Alright guys, I'm going to sign off now. Ken97 still 171. Be safe out there.